What's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about the glycemic index and how much this really matters in your diet. What's going on, guys? Alright, I want to talk about the glycemic index. Now, before I get into how much this matters, I want to talk about what it is. It's basically a value that is assigned to foods, and it's basically once you eat it, how quickly your body increases levels of blood glucose, all right? So if it raises it quickly, it's higher on the scale. If it's more slowly, it's lower on the scale. Now, because of this, people have a tendency to think that foods that are high on the GI scale are bad and low as being good. Now, I understand where they're coming from, but there's a few things you have to understand, all right? So I get that we're a little concerned because if it's going to raise it quickly, you're going to have quicker increases in insulin, and we all know about diabetics and all that type of stuff. So it's a good concern to have. However, there's a lot of flaws with this system. Now, the first being, this value basically only matters if you eat that food by itself while in a fasted state, because that's how the value is created, all right? But when you eat it in a mixed meal, if you eat it with something else, if you eat it with protein and fats, all right, anything else, it's going to severely blunt the GI almost to the point where it makes no difference whatsoever. So really it only matters if you're eating it by itself in a fasted state. The other thing to keep in mind is these carbs, if you have a faster spike in blood glucose, all right, it's going to elevate very quickly, but it's also going to come down very quickly, all right, and then go back to baseline. Whereas if it's a slow, gradual increase with low GI foods, it's going to come up slower, but it's also going to take a long time to come back down again. So your net elevation, so to speak, is almost the same between the two. But again, it really doesn't matter as long as your numbers in the end are the same. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to is your numbers, all right? There's plenty of research to suggest that as long as calories are equated, the type of GI foods in your diet don't really matter. There's actually multiple studies that actually looked at this. They equated calories, they equated carbs, and they had diets that were primarily high GI foods versus primarily low GI foods. And you know what? Everything was pretty much the same. Body composition, weight loss, health markers, everything was pretty much the same regardless of what type of carb it was. So it's not necessarily the type of carbs that matter, it's the total number of carbs that make the biggest difference. Now, of course, there's other things that come into play. There's psychological factors. Some people have a really hard time with eating higher GI foods. They have a hard time with like snack cakes and stuff like this. And certainly they're gonna be less filling than more low GI foods that are typically going to be lower because they're going to be higher in fiber, which is what slows it down. So this is why I recommend not only tracking your macros, but also tracking your fiber. And if you equate all these things, including your fiber, it's not going to matter if you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's not going to matter, okay? At the end of the day, it's about sustainability of your diet. It's about your total numbers, and you're going to go from there. So the psychology of an athlete is important, it matters, but at the same time, the psychology comes into play too with the sustainability of your diet, all right? Because if you keep telling yourself that you can't have these certain foods, that these foods are bad and these foods are good, this is what leads to binging behavior and unhealthy relationships with food. So including some of these foods into your diet on a more regular basis, if they're things that help you stay on your plan, can be beneficial. Now, you want to eat more high nutrient dense foods, all right? You want to build your diet around that, but that doesn't mean you can't have your cake and eat it too. Always wondered what that meant, right? That's what it means. So, high GI, low GI, doesn't really matter. It's about your total numbers. At the end of the day, either way you'll get there. If you have blood glucose intolerances, this is different. I'm not talking to you about this. If you have diabetes, you have to be more careful. You have to monitor your levels. This is for more general population type people, all right? Any questions, as always, let me know, and I will see you guys later.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving.